It's impossible to pinpoint the exact moment when Ethan Cole and Chloe Parker decided to murder Chloe's husband, Richard. Richard was a man nearly double Chloe's age, and he had married her 10 years before Ethan ever entered her life. For 8 of those 10 years, Chloe had been slowly suffocated by boredom in her marriage, a fact that Richard, absorbed in his world of rare books and antique silver, seemed utterly oblivious to. He was more interested in the polish on his silverware than the dimming light in his wife's eyes. Chloe and Ethan had been lovers for 6 intense months before their secrets started to feel threatened. The whispers in their small, affluent town were growing louder, and they knew it was only a matter of time before Richard discovered their affair. Richard will never grant me a divorce, Chloe often thought, and both she and Ethan were penniless without him. But Chloe was acutely aware that Richard's prized silver collection alone was worth more than enough to fund a very comfortable new life for them, far away from their current complications. Ironically, the blueprint for their dark plan was handed to them by a policeman. An inspector made a surprise visit to the Parker residence one evening. Ethan was also there, a frequent guest for evening drinks. There have been several burglaries in the area recently, the inspector informed Richard, his tone serious. We haven't apprehended the suspect yet, but we have a good idea who he is. Our concern is that he carries a firearm and we believe he's already responsible for one death. Now, this house is rather isolated, Mr. Parker. Mr. Cole here is your only close neighbor. You also possess a significant collection of valuable silver. What are you implying, Inspector? Richard asked, his voice calm. I'm saying it pays to be cautious, the inspector replied, very cautious. Why not move your silver to a bank vault until this man is caught? I have no intention of doing that, Richard stated flatly. The inspector sighed, trying to conceal his frustration. Well, I've given you the warning, sir. Please remember that. After the inspector left, Ethan scoffed. He didn't need to warn me. He knows I have nothing worth stealing. But if that gunman tries my house, he'll be in for a surprise. I have a gun, and I won't hesitate to use it. Ethan was tall and powerfully built, and in that moment, Chloe found him incredibly handsome. She made no effort to hide her admiration. I feel sorry for any burglar who thinks he can intimidate you, Ethan, she said, her voice full of meaning. 3 nights later, Chloe was lying awake in bed, her heart pounding. Richard was fast asleep beside her. The digital clock read 1:50 a.m. 10 minutes, she thought. 10 minutes until Ethan arrives. They felt like the longest 10 minutes of her life. Then she heard it, a sharp crack of breaking glass, followed by the grating sound of a window being pried open. Richard didn't stir. Chloe waited, listening intently until she heard the soft thud of Ethan climbing through the open window downstairs. Then, she began her performance. She reached across the space between their beds and shook Richard's shoulder. Richard, she whispered urgently. Wake up. There's someone downstairs. Richard woke slowly. What? Someone in the house? No, I'm sure you're just. He sat up abruptly, suddenly wide awake. You're right. There is someone. I suppose I'll have to go down. He pulled on his old, gray dressing gown and left the bedroom. Chloe waited in the suffocating darkness. It felt like an eternity, but it was less than 30 seconds. A thin sliver of light appeared under the bedroom door. She heard her husband give a sudden, sharp cry of surprise. Then, the deafening explosion of a gunshot. Something, or someone, fell to the floor with a heavy, sickening thud. A door was thrown open, and she heard the frantic sound of running feet outside the house. Chloe waited. She must give Ethan enough time to escape before she called the police. Now that it was over, a strange calm settled over her. She rehearsed the story she would tell the authorities. How soon could she and Ethan get married? 6 months, perhaps. They could honeymoon in Venice. She had always wanted to see Venice. The bedroom door opened and Richard walked in. For a long, silent moment, Chloe could only stare, a knot of pure terror twisting in her stomach. He was pale and his hair was a mess, but he was alive. What happened? She stammered, He got away, Richard said, his voice steady. I'm afraid he's taken some of my best silver pieces with him. I wish I had listened to the inspector and sent them to the bank. But I heard a gun, Chloe said, her voice barely a whisper. I thought you're not hurt, Richard? No, Chloe, I'm not hurt, he said, his expression grim. But I have some terrible news. It's Ethan. I think the dear, brave man must have been watching the house and followed the burglar inside to try and help us. He's at the bottom of the stairs. I'm afraid there's nothing that we can do for him. Chloe fell forward as her vision went black, and Richard caught her just before she hit the floor. He carried her gently to the bed, then went back downstairs. When he reached the bottom, he had to step over the body. He did this calmly, carefully avoiding the spreading pool of blood on the carpet. But when he walked into the room where he kept his silver, he felt a genuine pang of loss. All of the finest pieces were gone. He closed the door and went into his study. But before he telephoned the police, he was careful to meticulously clean the small gun that was hidden in his dressing gown pocket. Then he locked it securely inside his desk. He had taken care of the one problem that disrupted his usually very tidy life, and he wanted to make absolutely sure he would have no more trouble. As the inspector had said, it was always sensible to be careful.